got on here. Awesome. Hi, everybody. And thank you so much for, for those of you that are able, I know we're not always able, but for those of you that are able to join me on camera, it's so great to see your beautiful faces. And for those of you that aren't, I just so appreciate you joining us. I know one of the beautiful things about the Zoom classes is that before, if we weren't able to come to the market center, now at least on our way to an appointment or something, we can at least plug in and get some content out of it. So super excited to see everybody. For those of you, I have not met some of you. My name is Susan Glenz, and I lead a great team in the Rochester Market Center, the Susan Glenz team. I have some of my awesome team members on the call today. And in fact, my special guest is Shannon Smith. She is our amazing listing and operations coordinator on our team. I also see Brittany, our client care director. Hey, Britt. And Sarah, our director of operations. Hi, ladies. I'm also the operating partner out in the KW Gateway Market Center, which is where I'm at right now. So I love seeing some of our Gateway agents on here. Hi, everybody. So thank you for joining us on this journey. If you haven't plugged in yet, just know that I lead a Systems 101 class for the market centers once a month. So this is our 4th month doing it. And the purpose is to dive into the systems of our business, because we are not just real estate agents, right? We're business owners. And business owners have amazing systems to help leverage our time and help us be productive. So what I also know to be true is that most real estate agents are not wired to develop systems and drive systems, right? We're just not, and that's okay. And if we are a single agent and we don't have that leverage yet, we have to figure out a way to put some of these systems in so that we can stay sane, right? So I'm going to introduce my awesome guest, Shannon, and I just want to make sure I say today that just because I'm bringing one of my partners on my team on does not mean that, you have to build a team, okay? I'm just bringing Shannon on because she's the expert in my world on the listing coordination side of it, the listing system side of it. So why would I sit here and ramble on about listings when I can bring in my amazing partner who does it a million times better than I could talk about it? And I don't like to hear myself talk a lot. So if I can talk to someone else, it's much more engaging. So thank you for joining us. I want to introduce Shannon. Hi, Shannon. Say hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today. Let's tell everybody a little bit about you. So I'll just start with some questions. First of all, how long have you been in the real estate business?
I have been in real estate for over 9 years now.
Awesome. Okay. So when's your decade anniversary, by the way? I should know this.
Maybe it's 8 years. It'd be like 2023, I think.
Okay. So we're coming up on it. Awesome.
Yeah.
And you've been with SGT for just under a year now, right? Coming up on a year.
Yeah, I started in January.
Mm-hmm. And then prior to SGT, how long you were in a listing coordinator role for another team? You also did a lot of other things on that team, but how long were you in a listing coordination role for the other team?
For the other team, it's probably about 4 to 5 years. And over that time, I kind of did that and other things too, but yep. And then prior to that, I did work in a corporate setting, and I actually helped back up the branches for their listings too.
Okay. So would we all agree on the call that Shannon's someone that can add some advice and offer some advice about listings, right? This is what she does day in and day out to support her agents. So in the last 5 to 6 years in a listing capacity in some form or fashion, Shannon, if you were to estimate, how many listing clients would you say you've served?
I know here it's probably been about 80 a year, and my other one is probably about 100 a year. So I would say probably close to 600 listing clients.
Amazing. Amazing. So think about all of the experience that Shannon has and what she can share with us today. So thank you. Before I dive in and take us down the path that I wanted to take us down, I want to make sure that everybody on the call has an opportunity to share what you want to get out of today. So please feel free to use the chat box and type in any questions that you have. If there's something you're struggling with in your business around listings, help, support you want, get it in the chat box. I'll monitor the chat box to make sure if I can address it during the flow of conversation, or at the end, we can circle back and talk about questions. Okay, so use the chat box and we'll go from there. Okay, awesome. So Shannon, why, this is what you've done for the last 6 years. Why is a listing system so important to the business from your perspective?
I would say it helps to make sure that you're doing the same thing with every client, making sure you don't miss any steps. Because there's a checklist of so many items that it helps me too if I'm going through my process, and there's some things I might have missed if I didn't see it on my list, just because you have so many things going on.
Yeah, and missing something small might not be a big deal, but missing something seemingly small could have a big impact too, right?
Yep. Yes.
So the other thing I heard you say was, and you didn't use these words, but I'll sum it up, consistency of delivering the same customer experience, right?
Yeah.
So I think as agents, we talk a lot about lead generation to drive business, because that's our one thing, right? Lead generate to drive business. Where the referrals come from, guys, ladies and gentlemen, is in the customer service during the transaction. That's when the client says, oh my God, I'm so glad I hired this agent. They treated me like gold. Maybe it wasn't completely smooth, because sometimes we can't prevent all the bumps, right? But they handled everything. They future paced me. They handled it like a champ. I will absolutely trust them with my friends and family, right? That's where that customer service comes in to guarantee the future referrals. We have to show up on the field. We have to produce for them, and then the referrals will come. So I think sometimes inside the lead generation conversation, the conversation we're missing is, how are we delivering customer service, right? And that's what you do, Shannon, so well. Brittany on our team as well. Like, you guys, that's what you do. Today, we're here to talk about listings, and I'm excited because, guys, if there's anything we're looking at as a trend in the market at the market center level right now, is listings is our biggest opportunity right now. As a market center as a whole, probably in a lot of our agents' businesses as well, listings is where we're down and we have an opportunity. The market's down too, right? So that's where we take market share. So you're going to see that a lot of our classes over the next couple of months are going to be listings focused. And this is just one of them. So I think it's a great topic. So Shannon, tell us a little bit about, without going into the total details, like, tell us a little bit about your role on the team and like an average day in the life of Shannon.
I basically work with Susan and then our listing specialist, Chelsea. They'll basically send me any client information and like a jot form for the client, and I kind of reach out to them. And once we get close to listing, I would say for, first week, I'm probably in touch with them multiple times a day. And by the time we list, they actually know my number when I call. I don't even have to say who I am. So
yeah, you come alongside the listing agent. You're an extension of the listing agent, and you're really looking at it like, this is my client too, right?
Yes, yeah. Definitely.
Right. And so, guys, again, some of the things we're going to talk about are things that at this level or a certain team's level, they're going to have the ability to partner with someone like Shannon and get some things off their plate. If you're not there yet, there are nuggets inside of this as far as systems you can implement yourself. So let's dive into some of those systems. Now, right now, this is going to go a little bit off topic because I know, Shannon, you don't manage this, but I've actually been thinking maybe we should have you manage this. I thought about that this morning. I'm like, why doesn't Shannon manage this? We have a pre-listing process on our team, and we can't talk about a listing process without first talking about the pre-listing, right? Because that's setting you up for success going into that appointment. So be thinking about how strong. I want you guys to ask yourself this question: on a scale of 1 to 10, how strong is my pre-listing process? And what do I mean by a pre-listing process? Well, I mean the communication I'm having with the agent up to the point of the appointment. What am I sending them? What collateral am I sending them that's reinforcing my value to them as an agent? A lot of times a pre-listing packet is sent virtually, right, via email or by mail. And that includes things like customer reviews, an overview of the process, accolades, awards, stats on your business. Anything that's going to support why they should hire you, so that when you walk in the door, they've already got a background, right? On our team, we send an email. We send a couple of emails prior to with a link to reviews, a link to past sales. It kind of gives them a roadmap to like look at our team's resume, if you will. And one of the things we haven't done, but I've heard this other idea tossed out there from other teams and like other masterminds. Some of them in their pre-listing packets, they actually send homework. So they'll send a PCD. They'll send a lead disclosure and say, complete this so that we can, I don't know what they say exactly, but like have this ready for our listing appointment. And then when the agent walks in that listing appointment and sees that that paperwork is filled out, sitting there on the table, right? Makes the appointment a lot easier, because they can just say, and this is a Ben Kinney script. I'll never forget a family reunion I went to. He taught a class and he opened up the class with the script and I was like, mic drop. He says, if he sees that that homework is completed, he'll walk in and say, okay, great. So nice to meet you. I can't wait to take a tour, but let me ask you this. Is there anything that we need to talk about today other than price before we get started and list your home? Because he's thinking they've already reviewed my marketing. They've already done my homework. So why should he go through the whole spiel and try to sell himself if his pre-listing packet already did the hard selling, already did the heavy lifting, right? So is there anything, Mr. or Mr. Seller, is there anything we need to talk about today other than price for you to get started with me? And I thought that was really powerful. So I will just say, like, we don't have Shannon manage that piece. That is something that the agent will send out to make sure that they're communicating up front and building that relationship. But that could easily be something that if you have a listing coordinator supporting your business, they could certainly do. And if you have any questions, I'm just going to open up the chat box too. Feel free to ask questions on the content. Does anyone here, by the way, on a scale of 1 to 10, is there anyone here that would have rated themselves a 7 or higher on a listing, pre-listing? Because I would love to have you unmute yourself and just share what makes it so great, because we can all learn from each other. Okay, just wanted to make sure I give space. Don't even have a pre-listing. Okay, hey, that's honest. No worries. I see opportunity, right? There's no shame in that. I see opportunity. I didn't have a pre-listing for years. So hopefully that's a good nugget you can take and apply to your business. Okay, let's see. Shannon, let's talk about how do you keep track of all of the things and dates you have to manage? Can we walk through some of like the tools that you use? And I'm happy to share my screen wherever you want to start.
I'll start with the listing summary, because that's always the first thing that I look at.
Okay.
So I can see when the list date is.
Okay, can you all see that? So I'll just kick it off real quick. This is the SGT listing summary. I'm a big spreadsheet nerd, guys. We've got a lot of Google Sheets. Unfortunately, I don't know a tool out there that gives you the details of a task list and an overarching summary like this. I'd love to get that on the docket for command. It's just not there yet. So we still find ourselves in between several tools. But Shannon, walk us through what we're looking at here.
Sure. Usually we'll put in who the agent is, the property address, the list price when we have it, the list date, and that's an important date because I plan everything that I do around that list date. So I know when photos have to be done, I can schedule around that. Photo date, I actually schedule those for the most part for the agent. So I take care of managing that, and I'll put the date and time on there as well. We create a Dropbox folder to save any documents and then all the photos, so those get saved there. The agents handle the exclusive, the agency, and the fair housing paperwork, and then I actually will take care of getting everything else signed and filled out. So I just put there if they've sent that to me.
So let's pause for a second, just for a second, because I know a lot of times when we're a single agent, we're doing all the paperwork. So I just want to make sure I say that very clearly. Like, I understand a lot of us, we're doing our own paperwork. There's going to be nuggets inside of here that I think you can apply to make it more efficient for you. We'll talk about how Shannon manages the paperwork. But what Shannon does for our sales agents is that, you know, they spend a lot of time in the appointment, understanding needs, taking the tour, gaining commitment. We don't want the agent it's not the highest and best use of the agent's time to sit there and go through paperwork for an hour, right? And by the way, I used to do that when I didn't have the leverage. And some agents, I think, will leave and get the ERS signed after the fact. And I know our team does that still to this day a little bit. I don't love that, because when I get commitment, I want them to sign that night at the table in pen and paper. I don't want to wait and then the next day send them something and have them maybe change their mind, or run into a friend at the grocery store that happens to have their real estate license, right? Like if they're in, I want them in and I want them signing. But then Shannon will take over the rest. So just walk us through, what's the listing paperwork that you're sending to the client electronically to sign?
Sure. I am doing the PCD, a lead, any kind of addendums like that, the home warranty, the KW franchise, all of that information. The MLS form, I actually will usually call them before I even send the paperwork to sign, and I actually will go over all that information on the phone with them to get the details first. So that will be filled out. We do have like a sign disclosure that kind of explains where the sign will go, how long it'll take before the sign's installed, so they're aware of that. And we did start a listing disclosure too that just explains some things that are in the listing contract as well.
Yeah, so let's pause on that for a second, because I think that's a really good lead in. One of the things that I think is very powerful in having a listing system, you guys, is being very clear and setting expectations with your sellers, expectations about what they can expect. Otherwise, if we don't set those expectations, we're going to find ourselves in situations where we have to deal with an issue and we realize we never prepped our client for what to expect. Perfect example to kind of give you some context would be, let's say we book an open house and we forgot, because we didn't have a process or a system reminding us to do this, we forgot to tell them exactly what to expect at an open house. Who's going to be hosting it, how long, when they need to leave, who's coming and going, masks, all that stuff we have to deal with. The fact that, hey, hide your valuables, right? Something could be broken, and I just want you to know that you're taking that. That's not, I will do everything I can to protect your property, and sometimes stuff happens. Making sure that we're having that conversation up front and clearly setting those expectations prevents a lot of issues down the road. Would you agree? We found that, right, Shannon?
Yes.
So
Definitely.
Can you just share, because I think this would be some valuable pieces of information for people on the call. Can you talk about some key points, and maybe if you want to pull it up, that listing disclosure that we created, like what are some of the things that we pulled out of the ERS? ERS, guys, exclusive right to sell. I don't know, sometimes we use that a lot on our team, that acronym. Because what we're finding is that if the agent forgets to have the conversation, we want to make sure that we have a CYA, right? Like a cover your butt email that says, no, we explicitly went through this with you. Because let's be honest, how many times, show of hands, how I can't even talk today. Whew, it's the coffee. Who on here has ever signed a document from an insurance company, a mortgage company, a bank, whatever, some financial documents, and you get a long, DocuSign to sign, and you just click sign, you scroll, and you don't read all the details, right? Like, show of hands, has anyone done that? Yeah, I just did it the other day, and I called up my financial advisor. I'm like, I hope I trust you that I'm just blindly signing this, right? We've had our clients tell us we're blindly signing this, right? So we want to make sure that we are pulling out the really key pieces that we need to pause them on by sending another email with, hey, we just want to make sure that we're reiterating and that you're signing off on this form, right? So Shannon, what are some of the things that our team discussed are important to include on that extra disclosure?
The first thing is, it just reiterates that all offers are to be presented to the seller by the listing agent. Also, seller gives us permission to use photos for advertising and social media postings without any compensation. Let's see. And then this one is also important too, is if like they might know for a while that they're going to list their house, but it lets them know that they can't publicly advertise the listing more than a day before it goes live, because otherwise we're actually held accountable for that.
So that's reinforcing, guys, the new NAR law around coming soons, right? It's called the Clear Cooperation Policy. And if you don't know this, you should. Like, we cannot market a property. Once we market a property, sign in the yard, any public advertising, Facebook, anything out there, within 24 business hours, it has to be in the MLS. Same thing goes for your client. You might send them previews of the photos and they blast it on Facebook a couple days early, right? We are accountable for what they share publicly, as well as our photographer, right? Some photographers get excited and share videos and share pictures sooner. So just make sure you're setting that expectation with your clients and your affiliate partners that you need to be the first person to put stuff out there. What else, Shannon?
The thing is what you said about like showings, that, you know, we try not to let damage happen, but every once in a while it can happen. People might forget to turn off lights or lock doors. So they're aware that that's a possibility.
Great. Let's pause on that real quick, because make sure, if you want to be a strong listing agent, which I know all of us do, make sure you know that it's the exclusive right to sell like the back of your hand, just like you know the purchase contract inside and out, right? Because there actually is a clause in the exclusive right to sell. It's under, I forget the number, but it's under lockbox, where they give us permission to use a lockbox to enter the property, right? It states very clearly that they assume all risk for use of that lockbox. So if you've ever had a client call you and say, hey, someone broke my door, someone broke this, well, we can point to the ERS and let them, I'm so sorry that happened. And unfortunately, you know, you do assume the responsibility. But this form just kind of, I think, puts it in front of their face versus getting lost in the details of the ERS.
Okay, I have just a couple more things on here. It says that they agree to maintain the property up until closing. So they have to make sure that the snow is removed from the driveway, walkways, the lawn is mowed. And I always go over that on the phone with them too, just to make sure, like, well, who is going to do that? Are you doing it? Do you have a service that does it? Do you have a family member that can do it if it's vacant? So I always go over with that over the phone too. Let's see. They have to also let us know if there's any audio or video equipment that's going to record, so we can let everyone know that there's cameras in the house. They have to let us know if there's any security alarms, and either give us a code or make sure that they have it turned off for showings during the showing time. And then the last is, if the property has tenants, the seller is responsible to let them know about showing times or group open houses, and make sure that the property will be vacant for those showings.
Yeah, there's been some situations where we've had the seller, you know, kind of push that responsibility on us and coordinating it with the tenants. And it can be difficult if the tenants are difficult, because they don't want to answer to us, right? But they kind of are legally obligated to answer to the landlord. So there was one thing I think we missed, Shannon, which is the vacation thing. Did you talk about if a seller goes on vacation?
No. I actually don't think I have that in this. Do you see it?
I don't have the form up, so I'm not looking at it, but
I think I have it on this one.
Maybe it's a different form, or when we like a setting email.
Email.
Okay. Maybe we need to add it to this too, that seller needs to, you know. So do you want to talk about the vacation piece and how that was kind of triggered recently?
Yes. So we had some sellers go out of town, and apparently on one of the showings, someone had left a sliding door open. And so the sellers came back from vacation and found that the sliding door was open. And we weren't aware of that. So we put it in our showings email that if you're going on vacation, and I also go over the phone with them too, if you're going to be going away for the weekend, which a lot of clients actually do now because the market was so busy, they would rather just leave the house for 4 days and then come back and not have to worry about it. Either have a neighbor or a family member that can just drive by each day and just double check to make sure all the lights are turned off, the doors are locked, you know, make sure everything's closed, and just check on it every night for them to make sure everything's taken care of. So we go over the phone, and we put it in an email for them.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess I'll pause on something real quick. Let me stop share so we can get bigger here for a second, and then I'll go back into that. What you guys just heard Shannon and I talking about, oh, we should add that to the form, right? We have a culture on our team, and I want to encourage all of you to have a culture in your business of constant improvement, constantly figuring out how can I make this better, right? Because every single deal that you do, every single client you work with, you're going to learn something. And I remember in my first couple of years, I would pause after every closing and just think about, what did that client teach me? What did I do well? What can I do better? And I would use those things to enhance our processes and build the systems that we use today. These ladies have taken those systems to the next level, but it started with me as the business owner, the rainmaker, doing all the jobs, saying, what are the things I need to do to protect myself and my clients in the future? So when something happens, this is something we learned at our Ops Boss class. When something goes wrong, what's the first thing that you want to do when something goes wrong? We want to fix it, right? We want to make it better. First thing, we got to triage. We got to fix it. Yes, Allison, thank you. What's the second thing? If you're thinking like an ops boss, what's the second thing we want to do?
Make sure it doesn't happen again.
Prevent, right? And the saying goes, I think they said, fix, prevent, prevent. Fix, prevent, prevent. Fix this problem, get it handled, make the client happy, but then figure out a way to prevent it, and then figure out a backup plan to prevent it, right? That way, you're designing a system so that this pothole, this obstacle never has to be an issue for you again, right? So what we did when this client had that door open, what are some of the things that we did, Shannon, to prevent it from happening? Because it wasn't just one thing. There was a handful of things. We huddled as a team. What can we do? So what are some of the things that we did inside of that evolution of our process?
Sure. I ordered plastic key tags that I can actually type up the showing instructions to put on this key tag attached to the key, so they'll see it before it goes in the lockbox. I type up a big sign that I can put right by the door, so they'll see it before they leave, and then like capital letters saying, did you remember to do these things? And I list the things so they see it on their way out. And then I've also started, whenever I see a showing request get accepted, I actually will text that agent directly, and then I copy and paste, like I type up the showing instructions just to remind them too, so they get a text. And that actually has been working because they actually will reply to it. That actually has been working.
And on the client side, we made sure that the pre-showing email goes out and reminds them that they need to take ownership of, if they're out of town, they need to take ownership of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So see the multi-tiered approach to prevent. Now, can we 100% bulletproof it? No, like we want to shake agents sometimes. And I love you all. I love all of our agents. And don't you want to shake some agents in our market? Because it's like, I sent you instructions. I asked you to leave the lights on. I asked you to do this, and they just ignore it, right? So we're like, okay, I get it. Agents are busy, right? They're on to the next showing. Maybe they don't slow down. So how can we make it so difficult for them to ignore our instructions? And that's where those ideas came from. So that's how that brainstorming, we find a lot of value in that, right? Okay, cool. So that was that form that we do, is all about setting expectations. And then going back to our process, the paperwork, MLS input form, PCD, some of that kind of stuff. Talk about how you set the client up to understand what they're about to sign versus just sending them paperwork and letting them figure it out.
Yep, I actually have a templated email that lists every form and the description, so they know exactly what it is that they're signing and what it states. And then I just include whatever I'm sending them, and I take out all the rest. And then I also will put
it's canned, but it's custom, right? It's a pre-canned email, but you customize it depending. So like for someone outside of Wayne County, you're not going to put in the Wayne County disclosure form, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I also will put instructions in there for Authentisign, because a lot of people aren't able to really figure that out. And I always find that's helpful, and I get less phone calls when I do that. So it says step by step, here's what you do.
Awesome. I didn't know we had that, or I forgot about it. And Allison and I were just having this conversation the other day, because she would say she has a lot of clients that are elderly and may not be as comfortable with electronic signature, but eventually they figure it out, right? Well, that's a great opportunity to pause, you guys, and ask yourself, what system can I put in that's going to save me the time to drive to their house every single time for all these other forms? Or if I'm already at the house, save me the time from sitting there for an extra hour going through the MLS, the PCD, all of that, when that can be done online, right? So we talked about that, didn't we, Allison? You know, sending them some type of a how to authenticate type of thing. Awesome. Was there anything else, Shannon?
I think I got everything.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. Okay, cool. So let me go back to share the screen to share your process and see if there's anything else we wanted to touch on. So we talked about the paperwork. You send them a welcome email. You take the supplements and you sign the supplements. You send the email that explains the forms they're about to sign. You have a conversation with them, filling out the MLS input sheet. Okay, what's next?
One of the things too, when I do that, is I set up a card in Trello for each listing, and it has a checklist of every single step. It links to some of the forms I have them sign, a sign request form. So
let's pause on that. Okay. Yeah, let's pause on that for a second, and I'll actually pivot to that because I want to make sure everybody, I say this out loud. We are currently using as a team a lot of Google spreadsheets and Trello because that's what we've always used. We have not yet transitioned to Command for our checklist. A lot of due in part to the fact that the team module for Command is kind of just came out in the last year. So we wanted to make sure that we had the right timing of transitioning. I can tell you from being in a leadership role and seeing what's happening behind the scenes with Command and having more and more of our teams in it, that it is really powerful. And I can't wait to transition our team. We currently use Follow Up Boss and Trello. Both of what those tools are inside of Command, and the capabilities are improving every single day. So I want you to know and say it out loud, I support Command. It's just been a daunting task to take a team with 12,000 people in their database, and we do 200 units a year, to move it without the proper help to do so. But we will be doing that. So everything we show you is something that Command can absolutely do, okay? So let me stop my screen share, and I'll open up Trello so you can kind of get a sense of Shannon's checklist here. Oh, hang on. I'm waiting for it to load. My internet's a little slow today. Shannon, Trello changed the way it's set up, you know, so I can't figure out how to get to the listings board. Oh,
there's a menu on the left.
Menu on the left. All right, hang on. Let me share my screen and you can tell me where to go. Share screen. Okay, so where do I go?
Oh, actually, it's right there, right in the middle, like second row listings, right there.
Ah, right in front of my face. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is just an example of our listings board, and she's got a listing checklist. You want me to open up this one, Shan?
Yep, that's the main one I use. Mm-hmm.
Your system has run out of application. Oh my gosh. Sorry, guys. I'm really frustrated with my computer right now because my MacBook is literally like, I'm going to have to stop sharing. You're going to have to do it, Shan. I apologize. Can I let you share your screen?
Yes.
Okay. So my MacBook, just sidebar, is like literally almost 10 years old, and it has so much stuff on it that about every day or so I get this error, like you are literally out of memory. You need to shut stuff down. And I keep dragging my feet to go to the Apple store because, let's be honest, buying a computer or changing your phone is like my worst nightmare. But guys, I really need some accountability to get this done. Like I really need your moral support to get this done. Did I lose Shannon? Oh no, she's still here.
Yep. Can you guys see my screen yet?
No, not yet.
I did share screen. Oops.
Can anybody else see it? Is it just me? No, okay. No, they can't see it.
I'm trying to share my screen because she can't get into Trello. Okay, let's see.
Shannon, if you have, there you go. Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Britt. Okay. So walk us through what we're seeing here. Like, by the way, guys, let me back us up for a second. So the Google sheet you just saw that shows all the listings down in a row and then all the key dates in the columns, that is our way of taking a step back at a 1,000-foot view and looking at our listing pipeline, and Shannon to check off the boxes to know exactly where she is in the process. This listing checklist goes deep. So that one scuba dives, right? This one, no, that one water skis, this one scuba dives, okay? So in each of those stages that she had in the spreadsheet, there's multiple steps that she's doing consistently with the client every single time, like clockwork. Again, the goal at the beginning was a consistent customer experience to drive reviews, right? And referrals, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So this is the detail behind that summary spreadsheet. So walk us through some of the things that you're recording for every single listing, Shannon. Oh, can anybody else hear Shannon? No. Oh, you know what, Shannon, you're muted. I gotta unmute you. There you go. Shannon. Okay. Well, Shannon, if you can hear me, scroll up and down. We might have lost her, guys. We might have lost audio. Oh, you are scrolling up and down. Okay. So I don't know what happened to her audio, but I will certainly walk us through this a little bit. So Shannon, hopefully you can hear me and you can kind of guide through. So the top part of this is just recording the key information that the entire team needs to know, or at least our listing specialist and our listing coordinator. Oh yes, okay, so Shannon texted in the chat box and won't let her talk when she shares her screen. Okay, so I'll talk through this real quick. Thanks for your flexibility and understanding, everybody. So we're putting at the top, when is it listing? When does it expire? What is the commission rate? What is the co-op commission rate? Do we owe a referral fee? Who's the client? Number one, client number two, what's their motivation for selling? What's their personality type? Because we want to make sure that when we pass that baton, Shannon knows what Chelsea knows about the client, right? It could be a situation that's a divorce situation. And we've had clients that say they want to be on completely separate emails. They don't, it's so contentious that the husband does not want the wife to know the email or vice versa. And so we got to make sure that we're communicating that to Shannon so that Shannon delivers that, because that could be a big no-no if Chelsea forgets to tell Shannon, right? So this is a place to collect all that information. And if you don't have a listing coordinator, you still want a place, right? Yes or yes, to record all that information, because hopefully you don't have just one, but you've got 5, 6, 7, 10 listings you're managing, and you got to keep it all straight. So you need a system to document this. And I was having a conversation with an agent the other day about their system is very paper-based. And the challenge with that, I always say, find a system that works for you and stick with it. The challenge with a paper-based system, guys, in today's world is that it has to be where you are. Like, we were chuckling because when she's in the office, her paper calendar is at home on a whiteboard. So how does if she sets an appointment when she's at the office, she has to write it down on a sticky note, go home, write it on it's just, so we're working on getting everything digital, right? So I encourage you to use the tools at your disposal. Command has a very similar feature to this. Like I said, the only reason we haven't switched over is because we started with this and it's painful to switch, although we know we need to. Trello is free if you want to try this out. Heck, it can be I started this very system with Chelsea, my listing specialist, as my client care director and listing coordinator. And we did this entire checklist in Excel. Right? Excel's free. We had a tab for each listing. Like, it was super archaic, but it did the job. So whatever works for you, my advice would just be make sure it's a green system that you can pull up from anywhere in the world. Okay, Shannon, scroll up just a little bit. So we record, like, when did we do the staging? when are photos, what's the photo date, who's the photographer, is it vacant, are there pets on the property, like anything we need to know. Do we have an extra key? What's the garage code? This literally houses everything about the listing that we need to know. It's not on multiple, notebooks or Post-it notes around, or, in our head, because I'll remember. Yeah, okay. It's in one place. I can't tell you how many times I've said that. I'll remember. Sure, Susan. Showing instructions. Thank you, Shannon. So what's their preferred method of showing approvals? We use showing time. That's a listing system. So how do they want to receive those approvals? Is it go and show, that kind of thing? Are masks required? All that good stuff. Attorney, who's their attorney? Are they willing to do an open house? Yes or no? We put the link there to the video or the Matterport tour. So it's all in here. Shannon will upload the attachments for the listing. And then if you scroll down even further, that's where the checklists start. So these, and you don't have to show everything, Shannon, just kind of keep scrolling so they can get a sense of the number of tasks that you do for every single listing, which, by the way, guys, don't get overwhelmed by this, because the reality is you all are doing a lot of this, right? You just might be doing it because you remember, or this is what you should do, versus having taken the time to like get it down on paper. And there might be some things that you're not doing on here as well, but it seems overwhelming, but it's really just a brain dump of everything we have to do every time to make sure we don't miss anything. Okay, Shannon, unshare your screen for me, and hopefully you can come back on your voice. There you are. Can we hear you?
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Can you turn your camera back on by chance?
Let's see. Yes. Okay.
There we go. Okay. Let us pause for a second. Any questions on the listing process that we've talked about? I know I haven't said this is what you do, then this, then this, then this. I don't think we need to give you a roadmap to getting a listing set up, but some of the processes behind it, maybe. Any questions you guys have? Feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat box. Nicole, I have a question from Nicole Frost. It says, does the agent fill in the Trello board with the initial client information, or does Shannon fill it out? Great question. Shannon, you want to field that one?
Yeah. What I usually do is I get a jot form from the agent that actually has the initial information in it, like the client's names, the information I should know about them. And then I fill out the Trello card from that.
So Nicole, we use Jot form. You can use Google Forms. It's any type of submission form. And then what I teach our agents to do is create a shortcut on your phone. So you actually have like an app that takes you right into the submission form. Do you guys know how to create shortcuts on your phone so it looks like an app? If not, Google it. Really easy. You basically create a bookmark and it looks like a little app bubble. So I have a Jot form for when I submit a new listing to Shannon and I need her to take the reins. I have a Jot form for when I submit a new contract to Brittany to manage, that kind of thing. So when you open it up, it takes you right into the form, and it's asking the agent what their name is, because we have multiple agents on the team, right? So we need to know who submitted it, what the address of the property is, asking them to check off that they do have the exclusive right to sell, the agency, and we actually need to update this, Shannon. It should say fair housing. It says MLS input sheet. So let's make a note to update that. And then it's just asking them for the seller information, name of the client number one, client number two, and then it's asking are all parties to the contract in our database, right? So if not, we count on the agent to make sure they go in and make sure the phone number for both parties is in there, the email for both parties is in there. And then it asks, who do you think will be the main point of contact for our honeymoon calls? So we're going to talk about honeymoon next. And then it just says, how does your client prefer to be communicated with? This is the agent's opportunity to tell us that, and then what their motivation is for selling. And then anything that we need to know to serve them at the highest level. So this could be where the agent could say, hey, listen, it's a divorce situation, or, this is something they're not really excited about. So that triggers Shannon when she's doing her kind of canned emails. She's probably going to take some exclamation points out of those emails. She's going to tone down the excitement. Can you imagine being like, we're so excited to sell your house, and they're like miserable because they don't want to sell this house? That doesn't that doesn't pass the baton very well for the seller. It feels like we're disconnected, right? And I think that's the biggest way, individual agents, by the way, to sell against a team is you get just me, you don't get 5 people passing the baton, right? And I can tell you a million ways to sell against single agents too. You just find the benefits and focus on them. So you got to make sure for a team, if you have these systems, and thank you for asking the question, Nicole, that there are ways to pass that baton so it's a seamless transition for the client.
So Susan, did you say JOT form, like J-O-T?
J-O-T. Yep.
Is that an app or a website or?
A website. Yep. And you can build a bunch of input forms. Like we use JOT forms when we have client events and we want to get RSVPs, right? We'll text out our clients a invite to the event, and then they can just click on the link and RSVP their name, the number of people attending, and it just sends us an email with their responses.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Nicole, Susan mentioned it earlier that you could do these in Google Forms also.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. So that's some of the stuff that goes on the listing JOT form. We also talk about like what photographer do you want to use? Do you need us? Do you need Shannon to book the photography, that kind of thing. Okay. So, okay, what were we talking about, Shannon, before we got, any other questions? Yes, other questions. Does the agent, that was Nicole. Any other questions so far?
I didn't have a question, but it was more like a comment. Like all this information is also very useful if you ever want to get out of the business and sell it, right? Because this will be, the more detail you have, the more money you can charge to sell your business, right?
Certainly, it's a huge value, right? And I think that the strongest teams, and I don't even want to say mega teams, if you're a single agent with one assistant or one assistant and a buyer's agent, whatever, your value transitions from just serving the client to serving your agents, right? And the more value you can provide your agents by taking stuff off their plate and letting them focus on their one thing, the longer you'll be in business with those amazing agents. And to your point, the more valuable your business becomes to someone in the future. Sure. Thank you for that insight. Okay. If we don't have any more questions, permission to move on because I want to make sure we get the rest of the stuff out. Cool. Okay. Shannon, talk to us about, all right, we go live. You're the one putting it in the MLS. You're the one uploading the photos, but then you also make sure you send it to Chelsea or I, depending on whose listing it is, and have us audit it just for accuracy, right? You're uploading the attachments, you're getting the taxes from the tax record, all that stuff.
Yep.
Talk us about what happens next. What's the 5-day, when I say 5-day honeymoon, what does that mean? That literal like name for it. What does that mean?
Sure. It pretty much is the first 5 days of listing, making sure everything goes smoothly. I'm in contact with them multiple times a day. What I started doing was, because when it got really busy and people were getting like 50 and 60 showings scheduled on their house, for them to try to look at their app and like the showing time app and look at all the scheduled showings, I started doing a PDF for them. I would print out the showing feedback and the showing schedule for them, and I would email it to them every morning and every evening, so they would just have like a nice one item to look at instead of trying to scroll through their screen and figure it out. So they find that helpful. I know the next day after listing, I always check like realtor.com just to make sure all the information transferred over accurately, to make sure it's all correct. Make sure any, open houses that might have been added are on there. Day 3 is just checking to see if the sign was installed in the right place. How does it look? Making sure they're getting all their showing notifications okay, seeing if they have any questions, and seeing if there's anything else I can do for them. And then day 4, I kind of still keep checking. I send them a copy of all their signed listing paperwork by email so they have everything in one place. And then day 5 is kind of like the last day, and I kind of just, get to see how they felt about their experience with their team, see if there's anything that we could do better for the next time. And then at that point, I do also ask for like a review and see if they have any referrals.
Awesome, thank you. So I want to highlight a couple things here for everybody. We call it a 5-day honeymoon for a reason. After you get married, for those of you that are married, or we all know about, the big, beautiful weddings, the honeymoon is exciting, Why is the honeymoon exciting? Because you're newlyweds. It's exciting, right? The honeymoon process in the listing is pretty self-explanatory. We want to make sure that first week, especially, because the goal is to sell it quickly, right? Because we know if they sell it quickly, they net the most amount of money. If it sits, then they have more negotiating power, the buyers do. So we want to make sure in that 5 days, that seller is so impressed with our listing agent, our team, that they're like, man, every single day they're reinforced. I hired the right agent. I hired the right team, right? How often did I hear and do I hear, yeah, I listed my house and then I never heard from my agent again. That's a shame, because this is your opportunity to show up and impress them, dress to impress, so that they want to refer someone. And the highest likelihood of getting a referral is in transaction. Why? Because real estate is top of mind for them. This is a classic example that the lovely Diana Kokoska, I'm looking at her, she's up on the wall. Diana Kokoska, founder of MAPS, always said, she talks about the RAS. The RAS is the reticular activating system or something. It's something in your brain. I totally got that messed up. But it's something that it's like, it keeps things top of mind. So when you guys think about the last car you bought, what brand is it? Okay, so I'm going to say Jeep. Okay, well, mine's a Volvo, so I'll say Volvo. When I was shopping for that Volvo, and when I first bought it, guess what? I was driving and I saw a lot more Volvos on the road, right? Because my reticulator activating system, Volvo was top of mind for me, right? I saw them everywhere. Did more Volvos hit the market? No. It's just that I was focusing on Volvos more. So my lens saw more Volvos. So when someone is in the process of selling, they're going to pick up on at dinner a conversation of someone looking to sell a lot more. You know, any real estate agent in the room, you could be 50 yards from someone and someone says, I'm looking to sell. And you're like, there, how can I help you? Right? Because it's top of mind. So just pointing out that sellers, buyers, they are ripe to refer you when they're in it themselves and it's top of mind. So Shannon really supports us, and it's important to have a honeymoon process for yourself so that while they're in the thick of it, they continue to remember how awesome you are and that you're delivering on everything you said you would deliver on. I feel like there was one more thing I was going to add about the honeymoon. Oh, I know. She hit the nail on the head at the very end. She said, I also ask for a review and I ask for a referral. So Shannon, tell me, how come you're asking for a review so early in the process? They might not even have gone under contract yet, right?
Right, but we always like to get feedback too. And if they say, you know, everything's been great so far, then why not ask for a review? Why not ask for it and see how you're doing? So
yeah, why not capitalize on that momentum, right? And then the referral, tell us about like that ask. Tell me about like how that conversation goes.
Sure. Usually if they say they've had a great experience, I usually say something along the lines, well, great. Like, well, you know, do you know anyone else who would like to have a great experience too? Anyone else that you would want to trust with our team to help them get, you know, their house sold too, or help them purchase a house? Kind of along those lines, not exactly, but.
So agents, if you don't have someone that can implement those systems for you, implement that system for yourself with a checklist to remind yourself on day 5 of a listing. Ask that question. Ask it like clockwork, right?
And sometimes if I do know, like they're like people that talk to a lot of their neighbors too, I'll be like, oh, I'm like, well, do they need any help selling? Like if someone like got a lot for their house and like, I know they've been talking to the neighbors. I'm like, hey, do you have anyone you can give us to call?
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So Shannon, I guess I'll ask you, well, let me ask real quick. So we've got 5 minutes. Unmute yourself, type in the chat box if there's any final questions before we part ways. Did you find value in today's conversation? Tell me one thing that you're going to apply to your business right away. What is something you're going to execute right away?
I am going to create a spreadsheet with all of that information because I don't have any of that.
You're going to create your pipeline. I love it.
Yes.
I like the idea of asking for a referral and review in the middle of it, because I always wait until after.
And guess what happens after? They're busy moving.
Mhm.
This is the last thing on their mind. No offense. They still love us. But like, I always tell my team, I'm the worst client because I'm such a high D that like I never leave reviews. That doesn't mean I don't love them. They did an amazing job, right? But the likelihood of me actually leaving a review in the middle of a move is drastically lower than leaving a review at a time like when I'm super happy I just got 50,000 over asking on my house, right? Love that. Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? Make a checklist. Lori, thank you. Awesome.
I like the idea of the pre-listing.
And that's right up your alley, Kathy, because you have a lot of experience setting appointments. So you recognize the power of that pre-sell, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, a lot of stuff you can implement. Commit to yourself what you want to implement in your business and by when. Make it a SMART goal. Give yourself a timeline. And then find an accountability partner to say, hey, can you check in with me by this date? I want to make sure I get this done.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Shoot me a text. I'm happy to be your accountability partner with that. Pam, were you going to add something?
I like the 5-day honeymoon. I get back to them, but not quite that much. And
Well,
it's really important to do that.
it is. Yeah. And what we didn't mention is that after the 5-day honeymoon, if it's still on the market, which I know this market we've been in, a lot of them aren't, they sell during the 5-day honeymoon generally. But in past markets, guys, we've had properties sit on the market for 2-3 weeks or more. And we've had a couple listings this year sit a little bit. So at that point, Shannon is still staying in touch when showings are happening, but the listing agent is taking over the majority of the conversation and making sure that they're doing Friday calls with the client. So they're setting the expectation that once a week we will talk. And this is, let's plan Fridays at noon. So every Friday at noon, like clockwork, Chelsea or I are calling that seller to go over what happened that week. Should we talk about a price reduction? We're staying close because the more space you let creep in, the less likely you are to coach that client to the right next move, right? Or it feels awkward. Whereas if it's just a continuous conversation, it feels natural. Awesome. Okay. So set yourself a goal, put a timeline around it, implement it, and then check off, like if there's 5 things you want to do, prioritize them. So what's the one thing you can do that would drastically change your business if you did nothing else, and go from there. So parting words, Shannon, 1 minute or less. If you could give any piece of advice to someone that is looking to enhance their listing systems, what would that be?
I would just say, I think the checklist and just keeping it organized, I find makes a huge difference. And also just like staying in touch like with the client and talking to them too. And just making sure they're informed of everything. Because as long as we're like informing them of everything, they seem to be, even if something does come up, they like already kind of know like what to expect. So it makes it a little bit easier.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. We appreciate you. We love you. Everybody, go get those listings. Go get those listing referrals, okay?
Thank you, Susan.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.